Before we look at the Edit Level Text command in detail, it will be useful to explain to you how LSS displays levels text and also the importance of scale when plotting and exporting text. To do this, I'm going to turn on levels for the current survey, and you will see that the level text is oriented to the feature to which it is attached. When we define level text, we define it as centimeters on a final piece of paper when plotting or exporting. Therefore, it's quite important to make sure that if you are going to be plotting this survey and you're going to be editing the levels text, that you make sure that you are viewing it at the scale that you are likely to be plotting it. Indeed, some LSS users will have different prototypes for different scales of export. At the moment, we're viewing this levels text as if we're going to be plotting or exporting at a scale of 1 to 250. Because the text is fixed as centimeters on a final plot, if we change that scale of export or scale of display, then the text will appear smaller or larger relative to the detail on the ground. For example, if we decide we don't want to export at 1 to 250 scale, but we want to export at 1 to 100 scale, the detail here will get bigger, but the text is going to stay the same size. Therefore, because we're not zooming the screen as such, the text will simply just get smaller. We'll change it back to 1 to 250. And the reason why it's important to be viewing it at the correct scale is that if you are moving text around so it doesn't overlap other items of text, and then you subsequently export it at a different scale, you may have either wasted a lot of time because the text wouldn't have overlapped anyway, or you'll have to do more work because now it's going to be bigger and therefore it will overlap. What I'll also do is turn on the point numbers. In this case, we have a fence feature which begins here, and because the point numbers are increasing, it's going in this direction from left to right across the screen. Therefore, in this direction, this is left and this is right, and it does become important when we come to moving the text around the screen and defining where it's going to be relative to that link feature. We will now move on to how the levels text is defined by default per feature. Configure Legend, Link Feature Amend, locate this feature, which is feature code F, and we will see that by default levels text are displayed and or plotted. The text style we're using is DFLT, and more about that in the tutorial on Configure Legend. The offset is 0, and 0 equals 1 character position. Alternatively, we could enter a distance in meters. And the orientation is by paired links, and what this means is that the angle of the incoming and the outgoing link feature will be bisected, and the paired links orientation is halfway between the two bearings. If we now look at the position of the text relative to the observation, we can refer to the numeric keypad on our computer if we have one. Number 5 represents the observation position itself. Number 8 is forward in the direction in which the link was surveyed. 2 is backwards. 4 is to the left. 6 is to the right. And the remaining numbers in the corners are the diagonals: forward left for 7, forward right for 9, backwards right for 3, and backwards left for 1. If we were to return to Configure Legend, we can see that we're oriented by paired links, position 8. If we now change it to position 7, but don't change any of the other settings, we'll see that we have gone forward away from the link feature and to the left. If we now make the orientation perpendicular to direction, then we can do so. And we can now investigate some of the alternative orientation options. Orientation by sheet would usually, by default, be east-west. The sheet orientation is defined in Configure DTM Display with this bearing value here. Normally, you would expect, if you were exporting this survey or plotting it, that the bottom of the sheet would run east-west. So therefore a bearing of 0 is the correct orientation. If we now look at sheet relative to that, we're now looking at position 8, which is up and away from the observation, but not perpendicular. That would mean that number 2 would end up below the point, 4 to the left, 6 to the right, etc. The other options are link orientation. Now this is different from paired links. Paired links was the average of the angle of the incoming and the outgoing link feature. Link will be oriented either by the incoming or the outgoing link. And wheel will show us an orientation by compass direction. And again, 8 is north, 2 is south, 4 is west, and 6 is east, and the diagonals are the 45-degree angles between those. And what we're doing here throughout is setting the default text positions for this particular feature in this survey, and it will apply to any new link features created from this point on, but also it will apply to any existing levels text on link features whose text hasn't been fixed or altered from the default. So what we're doing here is setting the default values. If on an individual link basis you want to change the position and orientation of the text, then you would not set it in Configure Legend, but you would change it dynamically inside the Edit Level Text command. If we now turn off the display of levels text for this feature in Configure Legend, all items of text for that feature in the current survey which hadn't previously been altered or fixed to an on position will be turned off. If we now go into Edit Level Text, we can now turn on individual items of text. Or we can turn them as per default on or off. Now because the default is off, by clicking it will turn them off. If you want to turn on or off several levels on a link, then I recommend that you use the string options, either whole string or 2-point string. This is a much quicker way of turning on or off or altering multiple items of level text. If we choose to turn text on but fixed in its current position, what that means is that if we subsequently go and change the default, such as paired links in Configure Legend, it will only change those items of text which haven't been fixed and turned on. So these two items will remain where they are, irrespective of what settings we have inside Configure Legend. We can turn items of text off in exactly the same way. So whole string, individual observations. We can flip text. Now this won't turn text on, so anything you've turned off won't get flipped, but this is a quick way of moving text from one orientation to the opposite orientation. Now because this is paired links, it will flip from one side to the other. If it was sheet oriented, it would go round the 8 compass directions in turn. We can alter an individual item of level text and then optionally copy its settings to other items of text. I select the one I want to change. I can change its text style, the offset, the orientation, the position, and also I can copy those settings to other observations. The position and offset option will present us with an entirely dynamic interface. We've selected the item of text we wish to alter, and in the lower left of the screen it explains that the orientation is currently paired links, the position is 8, and you can see a representation of the numeric keypad inside the rectangle, so you can see numbers 7 and 9 at the top and 4, 6, 1, 2, 3 across the bottom. The letter P on the left there indicates that we're in paired links mode, and we can now use a variety of keyboard depressions to change how we position the text and orient it. We can either move the text around dynamically, we can type in the number that we want to move the text to. If we use the / on our keyboard, that will flip from one side to the other. We've now flipped the text from the north side of that link to the south side of the link. The asterisk key will allow us to move the text along the chosen alignment to any distance. It will not go through the observation. If we continue to move the cursor through the observation, it will simply just move away in that number 8 direction, and click will fix it in that position. The plus key will toggle between the various different orientations. So we're in paired links at the moment. It then toggles to wheel orientation, then sheet, then link, and back to paired links. Delete will delete that item of text, and if the screen has become messy due to a lot of edits, then the equals key will refresh the screen. And style will allow you to change the text style used for an individual or groups of level text. As with most of these options, the selection filter is available to us, and as with other dynamic commands, this will allow us to change the style or position or orientation by a variety of individual factors. For example, it may be that we want to change the style for one specific link feature but then only within a user-defined rectangle. There is a great deal more to learn about edit level text, and we invite you to take a look at the help documentation on this subject, which goes into a great amount of detail about the various options within this command.